it because you actually don't know what all happens in the universe. You don't know what happens within yourself. How were we created? How were we created? If you even ponder on the initial stage of the creation, you become speechless, man. You become speechless at the miraculous way Allah created you and me. We all know that it's the sperm and the egg of the mother. The sperm of the father, the egg of the mother responsible for our creation. Ask the scientists today what all happens in the mother's womb. What all happens for our sperm to get produced. What all happens for the sperm to travel and unite with the egg to form the zygote. Ask the science. The science tells us that in the mother's womb, when the egg is released by the ovary, that egg, it travels through the fallopian tube and it reaches the mother's womb. So simple to say that. It's so simple to give it a journey saying that the egg is released from the ovary, the egg enters the fallopian tube, the egg through the fallopian tube, it travels to the mother's womb. So simple. But the first question that comes to the mind is, who directed that egg to travel towards the fallopian tube? Who directed it? It has 100 directions inside, but it selects the direction only towards the fallopian tube. How does that happen? Is it intelligent enough? Has it read any traffic rules? Has it applied for any license to travel there? Nothing. The science tells us that the cells do not perceive and do not carry any intelligence. How is it that the egg immediately when it is released, it travels towards the fallopian tube? And the moment it travels towards the fallopian tube, the moment it enters it, this egg, it does not have any arms. It does not have any legs. It does not have any wheels. How does it know the only direction towards the womb? It should stick to the walls. It should fall down again. Why is it that the motion is not the other way around? It only keeps forwarding itself towards the womb. Is it happening by itself? The science doesn't agree today. And if there are some scientists saying it happens by itself, the factual science is saying you are a big fool to say that. In the inner lining of the fallopian tube, they say there are hair-like structures. Hair-like structures. You know, the structure looks like a hair, but it performs the function like a hand. What does it mean? So the science is telling us there are thousands of hairs placed in the inner lining of the fallopian tube, and every hair is placed with a perfect location. The location is so perfect. The counting of the hair is so perfect. The moment the egg enters there, every hair pushes it as if it is passing the ball with a hand. It pushes to the other hair forwards, then the next hair, till the last hair pushes the egg into the mother's womb. Who made those hairs forward the egg only in one direction? Who is doing it, man? This is how you and me were born. This is what happened to our mother's egg that we have in our body today. This is how we traveled into our mother's womb, man. Does this happen by itself? And for this, did we ever say to Allah, oh Allah, I take the wasila of so and so to give this egg the direction into the womb? We don't even know this. Did we ever imagine that any human being has the power to study all these things that we are studying today? And the Rabb is saying, I am your Rabb. I created you. I know the entire system that is required for you. And that egg, when it travels into the mother's womb, the womb, before it reaches the womb, the science tells us, who is doing this? Imagine, you are receiving a guest at your home. What do you do before receiving the guest? You arrange everything in the house. You perfectly make sure that the guest is not uncomfortable when he is at the home. You make sure that guest receives everything in a very disciplined and organized manner. You honor the guest. The science is saying that the time when the egg starts entering the fallopian tube, the womb starts to adjust to receive the guest. Is it happening by itself? Who is doing it? The womb is there for so many years, so many months it's there. It never does all the time, but it immediately starts doing the moment the egg enters the fallopian tube. Who is programming that womb to do this? it enters the womb. The science tells us for 24 hours that egg is alive. After 24 hours, it dies. So in those 24 hours, if a human being is to be born, you need a sperm. You need the male portion to coagulate. From where does it come now? Now look what the science says about our sperm. It says the sperm of the human body. The science, Reader's Digest, it says there are 100 million sperms. How many 100 million sperms? Produced every day in our body. Can you imagine the count? 100 million sperms are produced every day in our body. And these sperms, they are so perfect in their structure and design. Science says that if the structure of the sperm would have been something different, it would have never been able to travel through the fallopian tube to coagulate or to unite with the egg of the mother. The structure, you can't even imagine the structure. Who is doing this? Who is doing this? Deities like human beings who are born like us, who eat like us, who drink like us, who sleep like us. Those people who never knew of this knowledge earlier, these are the people who will talk about all these things to Allah to remind him. When Allah is doing everything by himself, will Allah not give you what is required for you in your taqdeer till you die? That is already destined. But we are in a hurry. We intercede. We make intercessors to make du'as with Allah. When Allah is saying, I am your Rabbul Alameen. I am your Rabbul Alameen. And the Rabb for everyone whom you make equal to me or make intercede with me. I cherished you. I nourished you. I created you. I sustained you. I programmed you. I planned everything for you. I don't need anybody to help me out for this. I don't need anyone to remind me what I have to do. This is the job that I have taken upon myself. The sperm and its structure, they say, is so perfect. The head of the sperm is like an armor. And that armor is in two layers. The upper layer and the inner layer of the armor. And beneath the second layer, you have the cargo. What is the cargo? It's like a carrier. It's like a carrier. The sperm head is like a carrier. It has two layers, and under those two layers is the cargo, and that cargo is our 23 chromosomes. What is chromosome? So the science tells us those 23 chromosomes in the male sperm carry entire data of me and of you and me. What does it mean? Those chromosomes have entire information about my height, about my color, about all the diseases I may have, which are chronic to me, about my physique, about my hair, about my eyes, the range of my eyesight, the power of hearing, the power of smell. Everything is in those 23 chromosomes. And that is the cargo hidden under the two layers of the head of the sperm. Now this head of the sperm is attached immediately with something like an engine. There is an engine to it. Why do you require an engine? Because beneath the engine there is something like a tail. Why do you require a tail? Man, why this structure? Why not some other structure? You think this is happening by chance? Allah knows that this is the structure which can only go inside the womb and unite with the egg to give birth to you and me. Allah knows this shape is required for it. It didn't happen by chance. And the engine, they say, it requires fuel. You have a vehicle, your vehicle doesn't run without the fuel. That engine beneath the sperm's head, it requires fuel. And the fuel is there for it. In the Semitic fluid, Allah has kept fructose, which is the fuel for that engine. And it consumes those fructose and it works constantly like a propeller and gives a movement to the tail behind it. The tail starts wagging. The tail of the sperm starts wagging. And that wagging pushes the sperm in the front. All this happens by chance. You may imagine only one sperm. 100 million sperms are produced every day in our body. And where are they produced? They are produced in testicles. In the male testicles, the male body has a testicle that produces those sperms. In the male testicles, they are produced in a center which is made of microtubes. And the science is telling us today, those microtubes of the testicles, if taken out from it and spread on the earth, they would spread to 500 meters. Can you imagine who has put them so compact in that size? 500 meters they get stretched. And all this is happening by self. Then the science tells us that in the testicles, the head is getting produced in a different region. The engine is getting produced in a different region. The tail is getting produced in a different region. All happens in one testicle, and these three different places that they are produced, then they work like a conveyor belt, and at one junction they assemble each other. Can you imagine it? When they assemble each other, they are passed out. How many are passed out in one go? When you omit, that is what Allah said. When you omit your sperm, if you read Surah Qiyamah, Surah number 75, has not the man pondered on his creation? He was nothing but a sperm omitted in the mother's womb. Omitted in the mother's womb. How many do you know the count? 250 million approximately at one time. 250 million sperms emitted only in one single time. Now out of those 250 million sperms, it is only one that unites with the egg of our mother and brought you and me in this world. 250 million are short. The science says if that number is not short, there is no guarantee that one will ever reach the womb of the mother and unite to form the first cell, that is the zygote. Why? The science is telling us today that within the body of the mother, all that region, that is the journeying region for the sperm, till it goes into the mother's womb, all that region has very powerful enzymes. And these enzymes are so powerful that they are there in the body of a woman to resist bacteria from entering from that opening that Allah provided them on their body. All this is happening by self. Perfectly everything is set. Now when these sperms enter that place, you know what the sperms do? The science tells us they cluster together and they start moving in the direction. Just imagine a situation. The sperm never saw a mother's womb. The sperm never saw something called the egg of a mother, the egg of a woman in the mother's womb. How does it know that it has to go in that direction there? How does it know that this is my traveling direction and I have to go to that egg or to that cell there? There is someone programming it. There is someone sustaining it. When it is short, the science tells us out of the millions, 250 million short, hardly there are 100 or a little more that enter the fallopian tube. How do they enter there? How do they get into that place? So the science tells us that direction that they take up, we do not know how they take up that direction. But we know as Muslims, that is Ar-Rabbul Alameen. It is Allah who guides them to that direction. Once they enter that, about hundreds of them they enter. How do they know that they have to travel only in that direction and not come back again? Who showed them that direction? So Allah has planned for them. The science tells us today that the egg of the mother's womb, it emits certain signals which attract these sperms to come towards it. The hundreds of them, they rush towards the egg. When they are rushing towards the egg, almost by the time they travel that 15 centimeter or a little more of that boundary of the fallopian tube to reach the mother's womb, all of them, they perish except 2-3 of them. And of those 2-3 of them that are remaining, now you see, look at this technology, Allahu Akbar. This is how you and me came into this life. This is how every human being came into this life. The gods that are worshipped in the form of human beings, astaghfirullah, may Allah forbid, those people who worship demigods, fake gods, worship human beings as God, forget to realize that this is how they were created in their mother's womb. How can they be a god then? How can they be the cherisher and sustainer to this universe? Now these sperms, when they reach the egg, the shell of the egg is covered with a shell, which the science says is so strong that immediately the sperm can't penetrate it. Now the moment it is about to touch the egg, suddenly from the head, from the first armor which was covering it, it opens and it pushes out some drilling kind of enzymes. Can you imagine? It came all that way. It came from inside our body out. It never opened that armor. It never opened those drilling machines. How did it know that now it has to open it? Does it happen by chance? Imagine at the programming, man. Imagine at how Allah is cherishing and nourishing us. It goes to that place and only there it opens its drillers. They drill the egg shell. And once they have drilled, they make a small hole. They dissolve the egg shell. The moment that hole is made, the first layers, drillers, they fall out. The first layer disintegrates. Now from the second layer, another pack of drillers, another pack of enzymes, they come out. Those enzymes again clear the way forward for this sperm to go there, and when it reaches that egg part, imagine who is programming this distance so perfectly. The moment it goes there, it releases the cargo of 23 chromosomes. This is happening all by chance. From the time it is produced in our body, from the time it is assembled in the testicles, from the time they are released, from the time they start their journey in our mother's body, from the very first region till the fallopian tube, from the fallopian tube to the mother's womb, meeting the egg of the mother, and then they 23 chromosomes, they lie down beside the 23 chromosomes of the egg. These 23 and these 23 make 46 chromosomes of a human body that carry entire information about every boy or girl to be born now. And then they dissolve with each other. They unite with each other. They unite in such a harmony, with such a perfect timing. The science says we don't know how does that happen. We Muslims knew, we failed to tell the world how it happens. We knew there is Rabbul Alamin who does everything like this. He is the one who is nourishing, who is planning everything. You don't have an answer. We had the answer. We failed utterly to introduce our Allah. We failed. And then the science is telling us, when it unites, when it dissolves, the zygote is formed. The zygote is the first human cell. That is how you and me were when the first time our father's sperm, it united with our mother's egg. The zygote is formed. Can you imagine the size of the zygote now? Look at the miracle, man. Look at this miracle. How were you when you were formed very first time, where you had both the features of your mother and father in you? The very first time you were formed, your body and my body was in the form of a cell called the zygote, and it was how huge? The science says it was much smaller than one grain of a salt. Allahu Akbar. We were much smaller than 1 grain of a salt. And within some time, how much time? How much time? By the time you become an embryo, by the time you start getting your features of your arms, your legs, your senses, by the time this happens, within a period of 9 months, that cell grows to an extent. 9 months you are grown 100 billion times larger and 600 billion times stronger. Happening by chance? The deities you worship, they can do this? How is this happening, man? This is how you and me were created. You are born now. When you are born, when every one of us were born, the eyes, look at the heavens. You know, what is the standard to know your eyesight is good or not? The science, the astronomers, they tell us, stand when the clouds are not there. It's an open night. Just stand in a plain ground. Look into the heavens. And if you can find the nearest galaxy, you remember what is a galaxy? A galaxy means, I would like to repeat again, 300 billion stars. So the nearest galaxy, if you can see it, because it looks like a white spot. The stars, they look blue. Twinkling blue. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. How I wonder what you are. So that wonder that we have, it's blue light that we see. But if you can make out that there is a cluster of stars, they are not blue, they are white. If you can see that, your eyesight is very perfect. Why? Because you are seeing something which is 2.5 million light years away from you. Allahu Akbar. And you think this eyesight came to you by chance? You think this eyesight is given to us by deities who were humans like us? You are seeing a star which is 2.5 million light years away from us. What do you mean? You are trying to say that the light started to come from that star at a time when you and your father and your generation never existed on earth. That is the beauty of this universe that Allah created with. And all this is happening by chance. It doesn't happen by chance. Now this eyesight, see, when we are born, the science says for about 2 months, everything is blurred to us. That is the reason a baby who is about 2 months, when we were 2 months old, we couldn't move with the moving objects. You move anything, the baby doesn't do anything, the baby doesn't react. Then we had no colors in our eyes. We saw only black and white. No colors to us. How many colors do we see now? 7 million colors with the eyes. When you're born, blurred. 2 months later, black and white. The sight is developing. By 6 months, you are able to see. Therefore now, for a 6-month-old baby, when you move an object, it starts watching it. Why is it that for no other baby, the things go up and down, the months change? The very first sense that comes is the sense of smell, but it's limited. The science says the moment we are born, within 2 days, we get the power of smell. We start smelling. You know what do you smell first? You smell your mother first. Allah has programmed so perfectly that you can smell only your mother. So the moment your mother comes near you, you stop crying. You recognize her? You think this is happening by self? Did you take any wasila to remind Allah that, oh Allah, give me my power of smell after 2 days? Oh Allah, give me the colorful vision after 6 months? Nothing, man. Everything Allah did for yourself. But when you grow up, you become ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You start associating partners with Allah. You start associating intercessors with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who have nothing to do in His creation and in His sustenance and cherishing to us. After some time you become a little older, you start running. By 11 months, your mind starts to study culture and language. What happened to you? You're a baby, the same mind is there. This brain that we have you ever pondered on the brain? The science is telling us today that the brain is the first thing that grows in our body at a very fast speed. By the 4th week, the brain starts to grow at a very fast speed, and that brain comes out of the nervous system. From the head of the nervous system, the brain neurons are propped up, and from those neurons, from those parts, the brain is formed. And just imagine, I'll just give one example of the brain. The science is telling us today, the example of the brain, if you want to understand, if you people know communication and technology today that we live in, how many computers do you have in the entire world? How many master computers do we have? Assemble all the master computers together. All master computers that you have today, maybe in 1 second, the master computer is performing millions of operations in 1 second. Gather millions of master computers like that. Yet it cannot compete one single portion of the brain. It cannot compete one single portion of the brain. You know why? The science tells us today that the billions of neurons that we have in our body, they are networked with trillions of nerve cells. You don't, billion, trillion, and you think this happens all by itself? You think this all happens by people who are created like us and they do all this? Imagine. And what is the speed at which it happens? The science is telling us that there is a peripheral center in the brain, there is a central nervous system. What is the difference? So the peripheral brain, the peripheral area of the brain, what it does is, your heart moment, I'm not talking about 1 second. Split the second into billions of parts. Into billions of parts. Into those billions of parts, every part of your body is sending a message to your brain. The science is telling us today, it is as though 60,000 cities in the world, there are 60,000 cities in the world, all of them are interconnected with highways. Don't keep a policeman to control them. The traffic, it doesn't meet an accident with billions of vehicles flowing on that highway. Can it be possible? If you don't have a policeman, 60,000 cities of the world with billions of vehicles passing to and fro on those highways without a policeman and not a single accident happening. But that is how there is no policeman inside your brain. There is one who is sitting there as Ar-Rabbul Alameen. He is the one controlling all this traffic in your brain. How does it happen? The science is telling us today. Your body, it sends a message. The message, it goes, you have seen the optic fiber for the computers. They designed it from our brain. From this technology, they designed that. Optic fiber cable, what happens is, it has a very powerful capacity of a high speed of transmitting the data without any error. So these body systems that we have, the nervous system, the nerves, they bombard information. Millions of informatory messages are sent to the brain in every second. Millions are sent. And there are millions of receptors receiving those informations. So simple to say that. Millions sent, millions received. You know the beauty of it, the miracle in it. The miracle, the science says that the millions that are bombarded every second, millions of informations are bombarded, and each information is converted into an electrical signal received by a receiver of the brain. And the beauty of that is that this electrical signal cannot enter a receiver except the one for which it has to enter. If it goes and falls on another receiver, the message is lost. It's like lock and key. Millions of keys fitting into millions of locks. Who is programming this? The message, if it falls, that electrical signal, if it falls on a wrong receiver, the receiver throws away the information. And if one slipping happens, the science says billions of cells get damaged in your brain and you start suffering from memory loss. Throughout your life, every moment you are sleeping, it is being maintained. Even if you sleep, the brain is working. Why? The brain has to keep on commanding the entire body system what they have to do. Digestive enzymes, blood pressure, kidneys filtering. Every bit of information is going. All this I showed so that we reflect on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we think that there can be anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our Rabbul Alameen. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conveyed to us through this glorious Quran. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praises are due to Allah, the Rabbul Alameen. Why did he say that? He wanted us to reflect. He wanted us to understand. The ayat that I read in my last session from Surah Fusilat, Surah number 41, ayat number 53. What did Allah say? Allah has promised something in that ayat. Allah said, Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim, Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim hatta yatabayyana lahum annahu al-haq. Awalam yakfi bi rabbika annahu ala kulli shay'in shahid. Very soon we shall show them our signs in the farthest regions of the earth and within their own self, unless it becomes manifest to them, unless it becomes very clear to them that verily I am the truth, verily this is the truth. And is it not enough for them that their Rabb is bearing a witness on this? Just to pass on an additional information, you know the tortoise, the turtles, you know their beauty? The science is telling us today that the turtle,